ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to walk you through what to do with your lab data now that we've collected the data for the Hot Wheels Lab Part 1 and Part 2. Okay, so in Part 1, once you have your data collected, you guys will see that everything is filled out except for our force column on our data table. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to find the force. Okay, so force is going to equal the mass times the acceleration. So I'm going to put an equal sign, okay, in that force box, and then I'm going to type in the value of the mass. So the mass was 0.0274 kilograms. Make sure you're using the kilogram mass, okay? And I'm going to multiply that mass. So I'm going to multiply it by, multiply it by the acceleration. And the acceleration is 0.218 meters per second squared. Okay, so that's how you calculate force. Force equals mass times acceleration. So that's related to Newton's second law. Uh-oh, Mrs. Ulmer must have done something funky. Oh, I put in this X and I actually wanted to put in a star. Okay, so my first force is 0.0059732. Okay, so that's my first value. I don't want all those decimal points though. So I'm going to go up here. If you guys look up at the top, I can increase and decrease the decimal places. I'm going to decrease those down so that I only have 4 decimal places that I'm working with. Okay, then I go to my next one. Again, I'm going to type in equals, and I'm going to put the mass of the car, 0.0274. And I'm going to use a little star, okay, asterisk, so that's shift 8, okay, times the acceleration. And the acceleration with 2 washers was 0.0591 meters per second squared. So I multiply those out, and I get 0.101619. Okay, and again, I don't want all those decimal places, so I'm going to decrease the decimal places down to 4 again. Okay, I continue that same process for all of the other values, okay, until I have all of the forces, okay, for my Part 1 data. 0.0, and I'm multiplying it by the acceleration, which in this case is 0.665. Okay, again, I don't want all those decimal places, so I'll bring that down to 4. Whoops, went down a little too far there, so I'm going to go back. Okay, so I'll use the other arrow to increase the number of decimal places, so I just have 4. And then I have my last one, again, equal sign, the mass in kilograms, 0.0274 for me, my shift 8, so my asterisk times my acceleration, which in the last case was 1.520. Okay, that value again, I'm going to change the number of decimal places down to 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now I have my acceleration and force, and you guys will actually see if you look down below, that's going to populate the data table down below. Okay, I am then going to use that data table, okay, to create a graph to see the relationship between force and acceleration. So remember, we were increasing the force on the car by increasing the number of washers that were on the string that was attached to the car. Okay, so I highlight those 2 boxes. Okay, I go up to insert chart. Okay, and when I insert my chart, okay, I get something that looks like this. Okay, you can either leave this as a scatter plot, okay, which might not be a bad idea, and then go to customize. Okay, when I go to customize, I'm going to click on customize, and then I'm going to go down to series, and I'm actually going to add a trend line because that's what we're looking for. We're trying to see what's the trend in our data. Okay, so I'm going to go to series. So I click on series, I'll scroll down until I see this little box that says trend line, and I'm going to click on trend line, and I will end up with a trend line for my data, which my data actually looks pretty good. Okay, so that's fantastic. Okay, you guys will follow that same process for Part 2. Okay, so in Part 2, I'm just going to move this off to the side. In your lab, you're going to take your graph and your data table, and you're going to copy and paste it into your lab document. So if you go back to your lab document, scroll down, you're going to insert your data table here. So Control C, Control V. okay, to copy it and then paste it in here, and then insert your graph there down below where it says insert, okay, graph number 1 here, okay, and then part 2, you're going to follow the same process. You'll insert your data table and then insert your graph. Okay, so again, if we are trying to collect the or find the force for part 2, we're following the same process. Okay, force equals mass times acceleration. So for me in part 2, I'm going to take 0.0329 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.919 to get my force. Again, these force values will actually not the force values, this time the acceleration and the mass values are going to populate this data table below. And this is actually the data table I'm going to use, okay, to graph my data. Okay, and in part 2, we're investigating how increasing the mass of the car, affected the acceleration. Don't forget, you still have to calculate the forces here, even though we are not graphing the forces. So still multiply mass times acceleration. Make sure you're using the mass in kilograms, not the mass in grams. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's how to graph your data and how to calculate the force. Hope you guys are all having a great day. Bye.